Time for another hard-pumping rock hit on Red Rocket Radio. AM 690.
Psychedelic tones phased in and out as a fuzzy guitar played on the radio. Maybe I was one of the few of my age that thought music was getting better. Pulling onto the road, I let the notes calm my mind as I lit a cigarette. Meeting with Ted's family, the other missing child, was just as heartbreaking. It was clear from talking with them that neither family had anything to do with the disappearances, and they just wanted their boys back home and safe. I wanted more than anything to promise they would be. That in a few days' time, I'd be pulling up, and the kids would be running towards them with open arms for a happy reunion. It wasn't going to shake out that way, though. Too much time had gone by. The best I could hope for would be to bring closure. Tossing the cigarette out the window, I lit another before getting onto the freeway. Both families had just thrown birthday parties and used the same service for cake and supplies. Both had also had over the same clown. That in itself wasn't surprising. This was a blue-collar town. Plenty of families, sure, but most were focused on being able to afford their homes in the day-to-day, putting food on the table, making sure the lights stayed on. Extravagances like parties happened, but not frequently, not enough to warrant more than a handful of choices. Once I got back to the office, I'd start checking if there were other missing children who'd had parties with both of those. A long shot, but it was a place to start. Certainly a hell of a lot more than I'd had before. As the sun dipped below the horizon behind me, I switched the headlights on, more to be seen than anything else. Squelch broke over the squad radio, interrupting the music.
Victor 1, dispatch. Victor 1, dispatch.
Picking up the handset, I responded. Go for Victor 1.
Victor 1, 276 in progress at 8213 West Industrial Drive.
God damn it. The office would have to wait. Victor 1 copies. En route. ETA 10 Mike.
Dispatch copies.
Reaching down, I pulled the magnetic light out and stuck it to the roof of my car. Flipping a switch on the dashboard started a high-pitched siren that wailed to the rotating crimson beam. Slowing slightly, I pulled across the median, flooring it as soon as the wheels touched pavement. All 8 cylinders sang with a deep, throaty roar. Most drivers on the road were smart enough to move over. Others had to be flashed with the high beams before they got the hint. Drug calls were always a crapshoot. Anything from a warehouse full of mobsters to some poor kid who got caught smoking dope in his parents' basement. Industrial Drive, though, it was probably going to be something big. I pulled up to a sea of strobing red domes atop near a dozen squad cars. I keyed the hand mic. Dispatch. Victor 1 on scene.
Victor 1, dispatch copies. Break. Adam 2-1, dispatch. Victor 1 on scene.
I couldn't help but chuckle at the by-the-book ridiculousness of their response. Through the lights, I saw an officer duck into a car.
Adam 2-1 copies.
Retrieving my pistol and an extra clip from the glove box, I holstered them and walked to the cop I had seen respond to the radio call. When I reached him, I shook my friend's hand. "What the hell's going on, O'Brien?" Tipping his cap, he let out a long breath. "A fine mess, that's what. Patrol called in suspicious activity and went to investigate. Turns out Vice had been watching this place for months, and this is the break they've been waiting for. Unknown number of perps. 3 confirmed, but more suspected inside." He shined his light towards a nondescript cargo truck. "That thing's loaded with about a dozen cases of China White. Street value has to be pushing several mil." I pulled a cigarette out. "Why do you need a detective?" He refused the cigarette I offered. "Not about needing a detective. I need someone I know and trust, and you were close. North side, there's one entrance. I got a pair of guppies that can cover, but I don't want to send them into that shark tank. Losing Nate was one too many. Not gonna have that happen tonight. I nodded, pulling a long drag. No sweat. We all go home. What's the deconflict? Mildenhall and Bell strikes. Finishing the cigarette, I tossed it to the ground before stomping it out. O'Brien checked his watch. 5 minutes. Boys and I are pushing in from the front. Should be more than enough for you to get in position. Blowing the last bit of smoke from my lungs, I checked my watch. Copy that, Cap. A firm pat on the shoulder sent me off. At the door, 2 cops stood, shotguns pointed towards the ground and fingers off the trigger. It was reassuring to see they at least had discipline. Out of habit, I showed them my badge. Detective Felix, how are you boys? One nodded, eyes wide, sweat beading on his brow below the cap. Scared shitless. The other simply nodded. I let go of a breath, feeling my own anxiety. Well, if you aren't, there's something wrong with you. The one cop gave a nervous chuckle. You're cool as a cucumber, though. I shook my head, pulse quickening. I've just gotten good at hiding it. You'll get there, too. Looking at my watch, there was about a minute before they pushed in from the front. Unholstering my pistol, the slide went back to put a round in the chamber. God, I hope I didn't have to use it. Keeping the muzzle pointed down, I nodded to one of the cops. Open the door slowly for me. Once I'm inside, go on ahead and close it. He nodded, eyes still wide. I cringed as the metal hinges groaned. Without thinking too much, I went in as the door shut with a click. Breaching a space you knew nothing about was close to the top of the list on most dangerous things to do. But playing it safe wasn't an option right now. Crouched as low as I could get, my eyes swept the room. 2 doors at ground level to my left, and a flight of stairs leading to a balcony on the far end with another door. Damn, this isn't good. Moving slow, I went to the closest door. Reaching up, I turned the knob, opening it just enough to see nothing but stacks of boxes. Taking my head to the side, I closed it. Noises from somewhere deep in the building caught my attention. Heavy footfalls and cops shouting. O'Brien's unintelligible voice cutting through them all. The other door on the ground level broke open as a silhouetted man came running through while looking behind, oblivious to my presence. With a smooth, practiced motion, I holstered my pistol and stood, putting myself between him and the exit. When he was close enough, I launched to shove him off balance. He swung wildly, still not seeing me. Drawing back, my fist connected with his jaw, sending a jolt of pain up my arm. Staggering back, he finally saw me and readied his own punch. Deflecting his strike, I landed another blow to his ribs. Not waiting, a jab opened up his body, followed by an uppercut to his stomach that sent him to the ground. Out of nowhere, officers appeared, surrounding us. I raised my hand slowly. No sudden movements. Some of these cops would know me, but enough didn't. Mildenhall. O'Brien gave a sly smile as he directed a couple of officers to cuff the perp who was still in a ball on the ground. Glad you were here, Ken. Right man for the job. Well, goddamn, if it ain't Vic the Dick himself, one of the cops exclaimed as he holstered his revolver. I let out a groan, flexing my hand that had already started stiffening. I hate that friggin' nickname. Why do people still call me that? O'Brien walked up, readjusting his cap. It's catchy, rolls off the tongue. He nodded at the man still on the ground, but now handcuffed. This dirtbag was the only one who ran. Rest are in custody, getting set to make the trip to the station for booking. Lights flashed through the dark room as a search for evidence began. Out of curiosity, I went back to the room filled with boxes. Borrowing O'Brien's light, I took a closer look. All the boxes were carefully stacked with printing on the side. O'Brien joined me, giving a nod towards the stack. GXI? Every box had the letters printed in fading black ink. Global Export-Import, and that big creepy-ass place on the edge of town. O'Brien wiped sweat off his forehead. What, exactly do they export and import? I shrugged my shoulders. Beats the hell out of me. But they must be doing pretty well to need those digs. The warehouse was already overflowing with cops and technicians collecting and cataloging everything in sight. Think I'm, just in the way now. Gonna head back to the office, file my report on this, and catch up on some other paperwork and leads. He sent me off with a slap to the back. When I got to my car, I pulled the magnetic light off and tossed it in the passenger seat before climbing in. An orange glow cast the cab in shadows as I drew a deep breath, leaves crackling as they burned. I picked up the mic. Dispatch, Victor 1. Finished with 276 at Industrial. On my way back to the nest.
Victor 1, dispatch copies. Good work out there.
I smiled, double-keying the mic before hooking it back on the dash. Maneuvering carefully through the ever-growing throng of cops and journalists, I wormed my way back to the highway just as rain began falling. Cracking the window, I tossed the spent cigarette out. My arm pumped, working the lever to roll it up without too much water getting in. The wipers moved valiantly across the windshield, doing their best to clear the view afforded by the dull beams. Muttering a curse, I flexed my hand. Bringing it to my eye showed it had already begun swelling. My free hand went into the pocket of the door where I kept a pair of gloves. Hopefully, it'd make gripping the steering wheel easier.